You ready to do this?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. All right, folks, welcome back to the Trauma Therapist Podcast. I am very excited to have as my guest today, Donna Fadow-Ivory. Donna, welcome.
Thank you. Good to be here.
All right. So Donna is an ordained United Methodist minister, author, speaker, and artist. Her award-winning inspirational memoir, Sleep, Pray, Heal, A Path to Wholeness and Well-Being, tells a story of painting her way through disabling brain injury, chronic pain, and discovering hope beyond hope. Graduating with honors from the University of California at Davis and Boston University School of Theology, Donna has dedicated more than 25 years to healing from brain injury. Wow. I mean, come on. Man, first of all, thank you so much for being here.
I'm delighted. I really am.
All right. Before we get going here, where you are from originally and where are you located currently?
I am originally from California, Fresno, Bay Area,
Okay.
and now I am living in the Bay Area.
Oh, nice. Okay. You know, I just
Yeah.
left the Bay Area.
Oh,
I
yeah. Well, I
did.
live in Richmond.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right. So, you know, I mean, just, it's just, I can't think of another word, but crazy that, I mean, it's so inspiring to hear, just to read that snippet of your life.
Mm.
And what I can only imagine have gone through. So let's break it down. What the
Okay.
heck happened?
Well, I was vacationing in Lake Tahoe, and my family, we went to a restaurant, and a 200-pound glass partition fell from the ceiling onto my head
In the restaurant?
in the restaurant.
Oh my God.
And so I was taken
So
by
like this kind of
ambulance.
thing?
Yeah, it's the ceiling moorings at the top, and
Okay.
it just went boom.
Oh my God.
And so first impact was at the back of my skull. It banged on the table, smashed all the glasses, then second impact on the left, which then meant contra coup concussion. So I had trauma to all parts of the brain
When did this
because it
happen?
slapped against the skull. This was in January 1994.
Okay.
So 27 years ago.
Okay. So keep going. What happened? What ensued?
What ensued is I did not lose consciousness. I strike that up to my baby being in a high chair within my reach, my 9-month-old. And I thought there was an earthquake and all the walls were coming down. So it's like, where's the baby? Where's the baby?
Mhm.
You know? And then I went to my doctor 3 days later and they said, you definitely have a concussion, take it easy, stop nursing, you can take a little bit medicine for the pain. And it got worse, not better. And they said it was post-concussive syndrome. And then the MRIs, CT scans, everything was postponed or not taken seriously because at that time, with our understanding of brain injury, was that if you didn't lose consciousness, you could not have a brain injury.
Mhm.
So I went undiagnosed for the first 9 months with inadequate treatment and rehab. Yeah, which is pretty typical for brain injury scenarios. People go undiagnosed. You say, oh, well, I'm talking to you here and you're just fine. And then
Right.
30 minutes later, after movement, motion, stress, light, anything else, I would be unable to speak. So there was such a, sometimes you could speak, it affected my left side. Chronic pain affected my eyes. And it's just my endurance and my ability to walk well. I had to start walking with a cane. And then anytime I was out more than about 15 minutes, I'd use a wheelchair because I just couldn't walk very well.
Oh man.
So it was far-reaching head injury, word finding, memory,
Oh
visual
God.
memory,
That sounds scary.
everything. Oh, it was terribly frightening.
But
Terribly
you said
frightening.
you didn't go to the doctor until 3 days later.
That's right. Well, I went to the ER.
Oh, okay.
And the ER did an x-ray of the neck, wanted to make sure I didn't break the neck, and x-ray's fine. I was able to answer all the questions. So they said, okay, go home. If you get
Uh,
nauseous or have signs of a head injury, come on back in.
right.
And so we got back home from Tahoe, and then my doctor, that was a Friday night, and then on Monday I was in at my doctor, and she says, you have a concussion, all right.
Right. Right.
Yeah, yeah. So
So you, at what point were you becoming symptomatic, such that you're like, oh my God, something has gone on here?
within 24 hours,
Okay.
I was really nauseous and achy. Well, and plus when something, the whiplash, the neck injury, was, had a real hard time moving my neck.
Mm-hmm.
But I was laying around, so I didn't really notice much I couldn't do. And then my husband left to take the in-laws to the airport because the in-laws were with us from the South. And I realized that I was unable to call the people who were supposed to help me out from the church because I could not remember anybody's last names.
Oh my gosh.
And the church directory is all according to last name.
Oh no.
And I had no idea I had any memory problem or whatever. Yeah, go ahead. You're gone for 10 hours. I'll be fine. I was like, I
Oh,
don't know anybody's last names. It was just erased.
wow. Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. So
So now, were you a minister at this time?
hmm I
Okay.
was.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
So how does this unfold? What happened?
What happened was I went on disability, and there's a long saga of that where they think you can go back to work, but
Right.
the doctor says no, another doctor says yes, another doctor says, panic can cause all these things, or it's just the medical prejudice that goes with it is something else.
Mm.
So I've been unable to pastor since, just because I have to pace myself, which is really important, I think, for people with trauma when it's taking a lot of your energy. It's like pacing is really key. Yeah.
Pacing in terms of just giving mental energy to something or focus to something or what?
It's that's a good it's mental, emotional. It's also physical. It can be such a thing as I'd say, so where is the brain drain? And it could be too much sound. It could be fluorescent lighting.
Mhm.
It could be a moving car always puts me, under the table, because that
Mm.
motion, my eyes can't track it. So that would be an extreme brain drain. And so the pacing, my rehab doctor was most helpful. He said, Donna, for every hour up, you need to be flat and quiet for an hour. And that is the way to heal the brain. Because if you do too much, you actually get worse with a brain injury. So that was my pacing: every hour up, hour down, hour
Wow.
up, hour down. And I really had about 2 good hours a day that I felt like I could speak coherently, read coherently. But then after that, it was all a wash. And so in pacing, I would plan my days. Well, if today I go to the doctor, the next day I go to bed, and then
Mhm.
the next day I can do, so it was even day upon day pacing, and then hour upon hour pacing, and just planning out, when am I going to be able to um, when am I going to be able to be at my best to really know what I'm saying? Because I'm really good at pretending that everything's just fine,
Mhm.
and presenting a great front. And then I realize I have no idea what I just said, and I am making no sense.
Now, are you explaining kind of the acute symptomatology, or are you talking about the way you are now? Because this has been some time, right?
Yeah, that was acute in the beginning. And now it still happens when I overdo,
Okay.
although I can be up much more now. And I've gone through a number of healing thresholds using spiritual means. That has been very helpful. Um, and so now I still have to look at the week and I think, oh, well, I'm having a podcast on Thursday. That means my prep is on Tuesday. So I don't do it right next door to each other. So I
Mhm.
know that I'll be good. But now I can really do a good 2 days or 3 days, and then I need to rest. Yeah.
So, how did the book come along? Sleep, Pray, Heal.
Well, it came along because I would preach with my paintings. And in the first 3 years, my word finding was so hard, it would just go away, that my spiritual life and way of prayer became painting, because I found that I had pain too deep for words, is one of the ways the scriptures put it
Mm.
in Romans 8. And so I figured if I could just express truth, whatever I was feeling, because I knew that from having been in therapy and from my own counseling instruction and in seminary, you have to express yourself. That's so important, just to put markers on the journey when everything is foreign, everything you just haven't seen before. You don't know the landscape. So I had to express myself in order to get in touch with what was real. And I did that through my paintings. And in those paintings, every time
Excuse me, Donna,
yes,
for
I'm
interrupting.
sorry.
Did you start painting as a result of this, or
I had painted earlier,
okay?
very, very much by pattern, learn how to do the shading for an apple or a strawberry. Um, and I was interested in art when I went to UC Davis, and I had a visiting sculpture professor tell me I didn't have the talent to be an artist.
Oh boy.
And so I put away everything and I said,
Hate
never
that.
again.
Oh
Okay.
no.
Never again. And so I knew what to do with paints, but I had never used paints to just express how I was feeling as a form. That's a completely different form of painting than trying to make something look good.
Mhm.
My objective was making it true to express myself, because I wasn't finding the words to do it. So words were no longer working. And what I discovered uh, is that anytime I got something really real in a painting, it's as if there was a dialogue within the painting and it would show me something more. It was it was like a discussion. And my I define spirituality as a dialogue with the breath of God. So it's like there's this breathing in and breathing out, this fresh air, and this air you don't need anymore. We exhale. And with the spirituality, a wisdom comes with that expression when I take it back. And in the book, I call it brushes of the spirit. And uh, for example, I painted an empty rocking chair with empty cradling arms because I was so upset that I couldn't rock my baby, and I was losing out on her toddler years because I was in bed all the time. And I painted that. And I didn't know how to get that grief off my shoulder because a couple years later, it was just too heavy to move. And what happened in the process of painting this prayer, like I call it rocking lost, finally, it was like that weight moved here into the painting. It was like, yeah, this is a memorial. This is where you can touch it, you can remember it, but you no longer need to carry it with you. Um, it was just profound. And in the book, I think there's 12 paintings that just had a profound response to show me the way of healing. Every time I painted it real, it was like, well, what are tears? Are they a sign of weakness and failure, of not counting your blessings? Or are they holy waters at work? And for me, all of a sudden, tears became beautiful. That was a change. Or healing is not returning to normal. It's integrating, becoming whole. And so all of these have a painted prayer and a poem um, that I learned through this stage. So it's a journey, finding a path to wholeness, but doing it through painting prayers and just becoming aware that there are brushes of the spirit that just uh, they're like butterfly wings and just lift you up or lift me up. It was like, oh, it's almost like a very intuitive movement of the spirit that then would surprise me left and right in the last part of the book is creating anew, to start forming my life anew as a person who lives as a whole healed person who has a brain injury and chronic pain.
Mm.
That's different than saying, I'm never going to return to normal. I'm never going to be healed. But it's like, no, I am whole. And for my theology as a Christian, and that's what I've always been interested in, it really formed my theology and let me say, hey, yeah, Jesus talked about wholeness. Wholeness and healing are same in Greek. It's like, that's what I need to be, just whole, integrated into a whole. And so, yeah, it's just great things happened.
I love that um, kind of sentence you said about healing is not kind of returning to normal, it's becoming whole.
That's right.
How did you get to that understanding?
That's a painted prayer I call Broken Gifts. And it was the 2-year anniversary of my head injury. And my attorney said at 2 years, we will file in court because we will consider with brain injury, which is a lot of unknown, that what you have to after 2 years is what you'll have forever. So that's then when we'll sue. And the whole thing, that it ended up not even it. Well, there's a lawsuit terror story too, but I was facing at the 2-year point of my head injury, seeing all these broken gifts of my abilities that they're not going to heal. And I had been trying so hard for so long to do everything the doctor said and expecting healing to go back to normal. And to look at the books that were at Barnes and Noble or on healing and on pain, it was like, just get your head around it and you can make the pain go away. It was like, no, I have chronic pain that I get a stabbing pain in my head every time I'm up and moving too much. Don't tell me that I can change my mind about living with this, because it's real. The chronic pain is real. And so what I did is I took these gifts from Africa, um, eggshell that broke in the suitcase. My husband Hubert went to Africa. We'd always planned to go Africa and raise our kids there for a little while. And that's his psychology, East-West psychology, and Afrocentrics is his thing. And I couldn't go with him. He went without me. He brought all these gifts. Every single one of the gifts he brought back broke. Every single one. And it was at the same time as the attorney was saying, oh, 2 years, what you've got is what you've got. And not only were the gifts broken, but everything about me was broken. So I glued these broken gifts in the shape of a cross, and I just painted around it. And I said, here, Lord, I just give you the broken gifts. And I have a poem about it that I list the broken gifts, not being able to care for my children on my own, not being able to walk fast or ride a bike. And all those years of schooling seem to be for naught now. And when I glued those 3-dimensional broken ostrich eggshells onto the canvas and the light shone, I painted in the shadows. Because when you shine a light on something that's 3-dimensional, it casts a shadow. And it was on Good Friday that I changed the position of the light, because Jesus was on the cross for hours. The light would have changed. And I painted those shadows a little different color. And I was painting the shadows of these broken gifts of the cross. All of a sudden, there was a new being, a person being born in the shadows of the broken gifts that were just out of the shadows. And for me, it became both crucifixion and resurrection. That this is new life, but it embodies the brokenness. The broken shells are a part of the new life. And then, as staring at that painting, I thought, oh yeah, that's right. Healing stories, wholeness. It's wholeness. It's not returning to normal. It's wholeness. This is resurrection. It's not going back before crucifixion. It's crucified on the cross and becoming whole in new life. And at that point, I could say, yeah, I'm disabled. I'm healed. I am whole. because that's what I'm about.
In a way, you seem to kind of epitomize resiliency. I
Hmm.
mean, it's kind of astounding to me, and it's really inspiring to me to listen to you uh, get to this point. I mean, I'm curious if there were
Yeah.
moments where you were like, "This sucks." I mean, I'm there's no way that I'm going to be able. I'm just curious how you got to that point where you're talking about,
Yeah.
yes, I can be whole. I don't need to be back to normal. What uh, that struggle? What was that? Talk about that a little bit.
The struggle is real. It does suck. And I think because I had a lot of horizontal time that I was just laying quietly and praying, and not necessarily with words, sometimes just with breath, and then painting my way through it. Um, every time I painted something true, sometimes it was that this just, I can't stand it anymore. I cannot take this. And then I'd sleep for a week and I'd come back to that same painting and it would show me a new perspective.
Hmm.
So I think because um, it wasn't just going to a therapist weekly, which I did, the painting, it was like, when you're ready in your time, take a look at this again and see what you see.
Mhm.
Um, and so it was, and sometimes I'd say, I'd look at, I'd just watch paint dry, which is really boring. And it takes a long time. I was like, wait a minute, those tears in that painting, they're beautiful. Why am I so ashamed of tears? Why is it such a bad thing? And so it was sort of like this dialogue going on all the time. Um, and so I think the resiliency for me came from a faith based, because I knew that in my faith, in my relationship with Jesus, who I wouldn't put on anybody, to just say how meaningful it was to me personally, um, is that I knew that he did not run from suffering. And so I had somebody as a companion, a spiritual companion, when everybody else was gone,
Mhm.
who could just stand by me in my pain and in my suffering. So I wasn't isolated in that, because my faith gave me community of support, spiritual support, in being in the depths of pain and suffering.
Let me just reintroduce you here. So I'm speaking with Donna Fado Ivory. The book is Sleep, Pray, Heal, and we'll have that linked up at the show notes page at the traumatherapistpodcast.com. So, Donna, a lot of therapists, coaches,
Hmm.
survivors will listen to this. What do the therapists out there of all different types, what do they need to know from your journey in this whole thing?
I think what they need to know is that there is a wisdom beyond ourselves that can be accessed. I believe in all religions. Um, that is more of a community of therapists, that rather than just one person. Um, and uh, that wisdom can really support a person who is isolated in trauma. I think that's because when you go to the different the doctors, and I've been to many different doctors and therapists, I think one of the most helpful thing in my journey was, in the hours that I wasn't seeing a doctor, I wasn't seeing a therapist, I was up in the middle of the night alone and nobody was around.
Hmm.
Uh, my faith was what really helped me in those times when nobody was around. And that's a beautiful thing. And that gives you resiliency. It gave me resiliency. Yeah.
Do you feel that your faith became stronger or more solidified in a way, or how did your faith change as a result of this experience, or as a result of, yeah, the trauma?
Well, one way it changed is that I became less of an intellectual theologian. Um, and I enjoyed theology. And I chose the pastoral ministry because I really wanted to more of um, uh, a heart way to put my energy in and to grow in the heart, not just the mind,
Mm-hmm.
right? But all of a sudden, no matter how much I figured it out, figuring it out isn't going to work with a brain injury. It just doesn't work. There's glitches all over the place. You're never going to get the answer right, period. So let's start from that position, right? And so then my faith became the brushes of the Spirit as a way of breathing in, breathing out, and knowing that God's going to move and show me something to notice. It became very much more mystical from the Christian mystics. In terms of like having a manager for my day who does a better job at calendaring than I do, because I'm always mixing up days, or flipping things around. And so my faith is, it's much less institutional, I would say, with an appreciation of the scriptures and the Bible, but especially the spiritual bodies that are a reality, that engage with my own emotion, my own heart, my own mind, and are able to lead me to healing. Because I've had profound thresholds of healing past no doctor would ever expect,
Mm-hmm.
and nor did I. I relied on narcotics for 17 years. I needed a cane to walk for 17 years. I used a wheelchair for 17 years if I was up and walking too much. I don't use any of those anymore.
Oh my gosh.
17 years is a long time.
Yeah.
you know but what happened is I became more and more in tune with the brushes of the Spirit and the spiritual processes for dealing with trauma and injury. I just kept getting deeper and deeper and deeper. I was like, wow, there's a reason why so many people have been involved with religion over the years, because there really is a treasure there.
All right, Donna, as we wind down here, I mean, aside from your own book, obviously,
Yeah.
which we'll have linked up, but what book recommendation would you offer, whether trauma related or not?
I think I would recommend, I had two in mind. I'm going to go with Elie Wiesel's Night and Dawn. It's a 2-book, very slim paperback series. Um, I had a life-changing course with Professor Elie Wiesel at Boston University
Mm.
on suffering and faith, and it informed how I understand suffering and faith. And Night is his own writing about himself being in Auschwitz,
Mm.
and from a Jewish perspective, but also, where is God in all of this suffering? And it's just such a powerful story that that sees trauma from a different perspective and a different religion, but yet so much the same too. So those are 2 books that I've opened many times that I'll never give away.
Awesome. Well, listening to you talk, it really made me realize, um, I could hear, and then it's almost in a sense feel your journey. And I referenced a lot your resiliency,
Hmm.
and in doing that, I didn't want to give a backseat to all the suffering or the slash struggling that you've gone through. But it the way you talked and the way you spoke really reminded me of a lot of the therapists I have on here who have been doing therapy for a long time and come to this realization that one of the vital aspects of working with people who've been impacted by trauma is not how much they know or what they know even, but
Mhm.
that connection, that almost mystical
Mhm.
relationship in a sense that's being formed in that moment.
Mhm.
Um, anyway, so I just want to say I really appreciate you coming on here and sharing your story.
Well, thank you. I appreciate you having me. I mean, just it feels like we're sitting down across the table at
It
each other.
does.
It's kind of amazing.
It does.
Amazing.
I want to
Yeah.
ask you, what kind of paints do you use?
These are my acrylics.
Okay, acrylics, cool.
And I do have some oils, but mostly acrylics and oils. And see, I have them in the wall so
Yeah.
that I don't lose them behind each other, because I'll never, and they make me happy.
Awesome. Well, they make me happy too. Donna, thanks so much.
Okay.
All
Thanks,
right,
Guy.
we'll be in touch.
Okay. Thanks.